Welcome to Paranormal, where the shadows whisper and true stories blur the line between reality and nightmare. Every encounter shared here is real and far more disturbing than fiction. Dare to listen?
Hospitals are places where science meets fragility, where medicine works tirelessly to save lives, yet death always lingers close by. For most people, hospitals are places of healing. But for those who work within their walls, nurses, doctors, and night shift staff, there are stories that medicine can't explain. This is one of those stories. It was shared by a nurse, someone who dedicated her life to caring for the sick and the dying. At first, she had no interest in the supernatural. She was practical, grounded in science, focused on medicine and facts. But over the years, she witnessed things that changed the way she saw life and death. Things that made her question whether the old whispers she'd once dismissed might actually be true. Because according to the nurses in those halls, before a patient dies, someone or something comes to take them away. The first time the narrator began to suspect there was more at play, it was with a man she calls Brian. Brian had gone through surgery and everything appeared successful. The operation ended smoothly and he was left stable. Everyone felt relieved. But later that night, one of her senior colleagues told her something that froze her in place. Brian isn't going to make it. The narrator was baffled. Brian was stable. Why would her senior say something like that? She dismissed it, chalking it up to intuition or maybe a strange joke. But within days, Brian was gone. The memory unsettled her. She didn't know what her senior had meant or how she had known, but the words stayed with her. Not long after, a young man named Justin was admitted to the hospital. He was close to the narrator's age, cheerful despite his condition. They bonded quickly, talking during rounds, joking, and even promising to meet up once he was discharged. For a while, everything seemed normal. But one night, while the narrator was on duty, something happened that would shake her to the core. As she walked down the dim corridor, she noticed a figure, black, shadowy, human-shaped, slipping into Justin's room. Her heart raced. She rushed inside, but the room was quiet. Justin lay asleep, breathing steadily as though nothing had happened. There was no intruder, no sign of anything unusual. She tried to convince herself it was exhaustion, her eyes playing tricks on her. But the very next morning, Justin's condition collapsed. He was rushed into surgery, his life hanging in the balance. The operation was long, but when it ended, the doctors were relieved. Justin had survived. He was stable again. Everyone rejoiced. Everyone except the narrator's senior. She stood apart, her face clouded with unease. The narrator asked her what was wrong. After a pause, her senior finally spoke. During Justin's surgery, I saw 4 black shadows standing at his head. He doesn't have long. The words made the narrator's blood run cold. She herself had seen one shadow enter Justin's room the night before, and now her senior was saying there were 4. Then came the revelation that would haunt her. When the number of shadows reaches 5, her senior whispered, the patient will die. She explained that when Brian had passed, there had been 5. The narrator wanted desperately to deny it, but dread already sat heavy in her chest. And just as her senior predicted, Justin's health rapidly declined. Despite every effort, despite his youth and strength, he slipped away and never woke up. Among the nurses, there was an old saying that echoed through the halls. 3 ships will set sail. It meant that when one patient died, two more would soon follow. It wasn't written in medical journals, but it was a pattern they saw too often to ignore. And always, those 5 shadows seemed to linger nearby. The narrator wondered constantly, what were they? Spirits? Grim reapers? Or maybe loved ones returning to guide the dying on their final journey? Could these shadows be the same guides? But then came Robert.
Robert was an elderly patient. A few days after Justin's death, tragedy struck. In the early morning, Robert was found dead. He had hanged himself in the hospital stairwell. The discovery sent a shock through everyone. But for the narrator, the question that burned was this: had Robert also seen the shadows? Had they gathered at his bedside, waiting to take him away? Her senior had once suggested that the shadows could appear as loved ones, disguising themselves in familiar faces to comfort the dying. But Robert's death made the narrator doubt. Because if they truly were loved ones, why would Robert resist? Why would he choose death on his own terms rather than wait for them to come? Unless he saw through the disguise. What if those shadows weren't gentle guides at all? What if they were something darker, reapers cloaked in the images of family and friends, tricking the dying into following them? The thought terrified her. Maybe Robert realized the truth and out of fear chose to escape before they could reach him. Maybe, in his desperation, he thought it was the only way to resist their call. The narrator doesn't know for sure, but what she does know is that the pattern was too real to dismiss. Again and again, patients passed away under the same mysterious circumstances. Again and again, 5 shadows lingered at the head of the dying. She will never forget the faces of Brian, of Justin, of Robert, nor the chilling sense that death itself sometimes stood in those rooms, quiet and patient, waiting until its count reached 5. What the narrator experienced is one of those mysteries that medicine cannot answer. Was it simple coincidence, intuition, and the power of suggestion? Or was it something more? Evidence of beings that walk just beyond our vision, waiting to collect souls when their time comes. Many cultures throughout history have spoken of death-bringers, reapers, psychopomps, guides who come to escort the dying. Sometimes they are described as angels, sometimes as loved ones, sometimes as shadows. In this story, they appear as 5 figures, an omen that a patient's time has run out. Were they protectors? Were they deceivers? Or perhaps both, depending on how one perceives them? That question lingers. But one thing is certain. For those who work closest to the edge of life and death, stories like this are not easily forgotten. So, what do you think? Were these shadows the loved ones of the dying come to guide them home? Or were they something far more sinister, hiding behind familiar faces? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy hearing real experiences like this one, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might appreciate a chilling story. For in hospitals, where the line between life and death is razor thin, sometimes shadows move where no shadows should, and sometimes they're counting.